If you've spent any time around crypto holders, you already know this. Some assets don't just move charts, they build legends. And XRP is one of the rare tokens whose story refuses to die. Few people outside the crypto world remember how violently it moved years ago, but everyone who lived through that period still carries the memory in their portfolios, in their hopes, and sometimes in their regrets. And that collective memory is not just emotional noise. It still shapes the price today. Markets don't forget, investors don't forget, and stories definitely don't forget. But here's the real question that brings us together right now. Is XRP a story that already reached its ending, or is it a story that has been quietly preparing for another explosive chapter? Could a token that once surged over 70,000% truly have another massive wave ahead? Or are those days permanently over? Today, we're stepping into that question with more honesty and clarity than hype. Before we go deeper, I want to make one thing clear. I'm not here to sell you dreams, promises, or clickbait. I'm here to analyze XRP exactly as an experienced investor would, by looking at reality, risk, incentives, psychology, and data. And by the end of this video, you'll have a way to judge XRP's potential for yourself, whether you're a new listener or someone who has been holding through every twist of the last 5 years. Let's start with something that shocks many newcomers. XRP didn't become famous because it had a clever design or because institutions endorsed it. It became famous because it delivered one of the most extreme rallies in all of crypto history. Going from fractions of a cent to over $3 wasn't just a price move. It was the type of event that transforms ordinary people into lifelong believers. Gains like that don't simply show up in a chart. They carve themselves into a community's identity. When something multiplies your money by tens of thousands of percent, the memory becomes almost mythological. It creates expectations, sometimes unrealistic ones, but incredibly powerful ones. And when those expectations collide with reality, markets get unpredictable. Now, some people hear that and jump immediately to conclusions. They say, XRP pumped that hard once, so it can do it again. And maybe it can. But moves of that magnitude require a rare cocktail: significant new liquidity, a dominant narrative, widespread excitement, and timing that borders on perfect. Bitcoin had that, Ethereum had that, XRP had that, but perfection isn't something you schedule. It appears when conditions align. So when people ask me whether XRP can explode again, the honest answer is this. It depends far less on hope and far more on the winds of macro cycles and technological relevance. Which brings us to the present. What is XRP today? Forget the marketing slogans for a moment. XRP is a digital asset created in 2012 with a maximum supply of 100 billion tokens. Roughly half of that supply is in circulation. Its main purpose is to facilitate fast, low-cost transfers of value across borders, ideally serving as a bridge asset between different currencies. Transactions settle in seconds and cost less than a cent. On paper, this makes XRP a powerful tool for remittances and institutional liquidity flows. But here's where confusion often begins. XRP is deeply associated with Ripple, the company behind several payment products. However, Ripple the company and XRP the token are not the same. Ripple can build payment solutions that use XRP, or solutions that avoid XRP entirely. So when someone assumes that every new Ripple partnership automatically means demand for XRP, they're misunderstanding the ecosystem. For XRP to rise meaningfully, it must generate real, consistent token demand, not just attention or headlines about software integrations. But this doesn't mean the story is over. It means the story is more complex than many believe. If XRP gains real traction as a liquidity bridge, especially in markets where traditional banking rails are slow or expensive, then genuine token demand can emerge. And when genuine demand meets a speculative market cycle, price amplification can be extraordinary. Still, optimism without realism is dangerous. And the reality is that the crypto market is highly cyclical. In bear markets, even the strongest tokens fall 70 to 90%. In bull markets, even average tokens rise 5 times, 10 times, sometimes more. So the question isn't whether XRP will explode in a vacuum. The question is whether its fundamentals, narrative, and adoption can align with the timing of the next major crypto cycle. Right now, there are 3 pillars that could drive a future XRP rally. The first is real-world utility. The global cross-border payments market exceeds $150 trillion per year. If XRP captures even a small slice of that, daily transactional demand could rise dramatically. But capturing that slice requires institutional comfort, regulatory clarity, liquidity partners, and actual financial incentives for using XRP over alternatives. The second pillar is market psychology. Holder fatigue is real. Many people bought XRP at high levels during the last cycle, hoping for immediate institutional adoption. When the price fell and remained depressed, frustration grew. This kind of emotional weight creates sell pressure on every bounce. But that same emotional weight can also create explosive momentum if sentiment finally flips. Frustration turns into relief. Relief turns into excitement. And excitement turns into buying pressure. It's a behavioral loop that magnifies every move. The third pillar is narrative. Crypto moves on narratives more than spreadsheets. Narratives create attention. Attention creates liquidity. Liquidity creates volatility. And volatility creates opportunity. If XRP ever regains the narrative of being a core asset for global value transfer, especially in a world exploring digital currencies, tokenized settlements, and real-time rails, the upside could be enormous. But we also have to discuss what could hold XRP back. Competition is fierce. Today's blockchain landscape includes extremely fast Layer 1 chains, stablecoin networks that settle instantly, and new interoperability standards. Some offer cost and speed comparable to XRP. Some integrate more cleanly with decentralized finance. If banks or fintech companies see better economics or better compliance options elsewhere, XRP could lose relevance. Another major risk is what I call technology without token value. Imagine Ripple achieves widespread adoption for its software, but institutions don't need to hold XRP to use it. In that world, XRP becomes disconnected from Ripple's success. It doesn't matter how many institutions join the network if they aren't relying on the token. And then there's the human factor. When a community holds a token for years without seeing the results they expected, emotional exhaustion builds. People who've waited 5 or 6 years for a breakout might sell aggressively at the first sign of recovery. This creates heavy resistance levels where every pump is met with selling. Without fresh demand, these walls are difficult to break. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with 3 realistic futures. In the first future, XRP slowly fades in relevance. It continues moving with the market, but never regains leadership. It provides occasional rallies, but doesn't outperform the top assets. In the second future, XRP becomes a stable blue-chip altcoin. It finds its place in specific payment corridors and grows moderately with each cycle. It doesn't dominate, but it doesn't disappear. And in the third future, XRP stages a dramatic comeback. Regulatory clarity arrives. Adoption becomes measurable, liquidity deepens, and the narrative resurfaces at scale. In that world, returning to old highs or even surpassing them becomes plausible, not guaranteed, but plausible. But now we return to the one question that brought you here. Is it too late to buy XRP, or is it still early? The truth is simple. If you're looking for certainty, it's too late for that. XRP is not a safe, predictable investment. It is a thesis, a bet on an idea that could either become crucial in the next generation of global payments or remain a niche solution competing for attention. But if you believe in the thesis, if you understand the risks, if you accept the volatility, if you size your position responsibly, then it may not be too late. Opportunity doesn't come from certainty. It comes from asymmetric bets, where the downside is defined and the upside is open-ended. XRP lives in that space, risky, uncomfortable, but not without possibility. Smart investors don't ask whether something will go to the moon. They ask how much of their portfolio deserves to be exposed to that story. They ask what conditions would make the thesis succeed or fail, and they stay flexible enough to change their mind when new information arrives. So here's the real takeaway. XRP isn't dead. XRP isn't guaranteed to explode. XRP is a complex asset caught between real potential and real challenges. Your job isn't to predict perfectly. It's to understand the landscape well enough to make decisions you won't regret. If you've listened this far, you're clearly someone who prefers analysis over noise, someone who cares about understanding the deeper mechanics behind the charts. So here's your question of the day. Where do you personally believe XRP is heading? Slow fade, survivor, or explosive comeback? Comment your perspective. Your reasoning matters as much as your answer. And as always, not professional advice. Consult a qualified expert as needed.